This is my true story. I buried my son 20 years ago. I stood at his grave every Sunday for 2 decades. His phone number stayed in my contacts because deleting it felt like losing him twice. Last month, my phone rang at 2:47 a.m. His name lit up the screen. I answered. A voice said, "Dad, where am I?" It was him. My dead son was calling me, confused, scared, asking why nothing made sense. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from and subscribe so this story reaches everyone. 20 years ago, I buried my son beneath an oak tree at Riverside Cemetery. His name was carved into gray stone. Michael James Porter. Born April 12, 1986. Died November 3, 2005. 19 years old. The funeral lasted 40 minutes. There were maybe 30 people there. His mother stood beside me but wouldn't look at the casket. She stared at the ground the entire time. Her sister had to hold her up. My son's friends came, young kids with red eyes who didn't know what to say. They shuffled their feet. They mumbled condolences. Within a year, most of them stopped calling. Within 2 years, none of them mentioned his name. That's how death works. People move on. They have to. But I couldn't. The accident happened on a Friday night. He was driving home from work. A truck ran a red light and hit him on the driver's side. The impact killed him instantly. That's what the police told me. No suffering, no pain, just gone. I got the call at 11:43 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was watching the news and I looked at the clock when the phone rang. An officer said there had been an accident. He said I needed to come to County General Hospital immediately. I knew. Parents always know. I drove there going 90 miles per hour. I didn't care if I crashed. When I arrived, they took me to a private room. That's when I knew for certain. They only use private rooms for bad news. They let me see him. His face was untouched. He looked asleep. Peaceful. I touched his hand, and it was still warm. I kept thinking he would wake up. I stood there for 2 hours waiting for his chest to move. It never did. His mother arrived and screamed. She screamed so loud security came. She collapsed. They had to sedate her. She couldn't go to the identification. She couldn't sign papers. I did everything alone. I picked the coffin. I chose the plot. I wrote the obituary. I selected the flowers. I did it all in a fog, moving through motions I didn't understand. The funeral was worse than the hospital. At the hospital, I could pretend. I could imagine mistakes. But at the funeral, they lowered him into the ground. I heard the machinery. I heard the coffin settle into the earth. People threw flowers onto the lid. His mother threw a letter she had written. I threw nothing. I just watched. After everyone left, I stayed. The workers filled the grave, shovel by shovel. I watched every minute. I needed to see it finished. I needed to know he was really down there. When they packed the last of the dirt, I finally walked away. For 20 years, I visited every Sunday. Rain, snow, heat, didn't matter. I brought flowers. I talked to him. I told him about my week. I told him things I couldn't tell anyone else. His mother stopped coming after the first year. She said it hurt too much. She said she needed to move forward. We divorced 3 years after he died. Grief killed our marriage. She remarried. She had another child. She built a new life. I couldn't. I kept his room exactly the way he left it. His clothes still hung in the closet. His books sat on the shelf. His phone number stayed in my contacts. I paid the bill every month even though the phone had been disconnected. $30 a month to keep his number alive in my phone. People said I needed therapy. People said I needed to let go. I didn't care what people said. I learned to live around the emptiness. You don't get over losing a child. You just learn to walk carefully around the hole they leave behind. You learn to function. You go to work. You pay bills. You pretend you're fine. But you're never fine. Every birthday that passes without them is torture. Every Christmas, every milestone they'll never reach. I watched his friends graduate college, get married, have children. My son stayed 19 forever. Frozen in time. A boy who never got to become a man. I accepted it. I had no choice. Dead is final. Until last month, when his number lit up my phone at 2:47 in the morning. Last month, on September 14th, my phone rang at 2:47 a.m. I was asleep. The sound jolted me awake. I grabbed the phone off my nightstand and looked at the screen. The name said Michael, my son's name. His contact photo stared back at me. A picture from his 18th birthday, smiling, alive. I sat frozen in bed holding the phone, my heart hammered in my chest. The room felt cold. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped it. This couldn't be real. The number had been disconnected for 19 years. I kept it in my contacts, but it didn't work. I had tried calling it hundreds of times over the years. It always went to a recorded message saying the number was no longer in service. But now it was calling me. The phone kept ringing. 4 rings, 5 rings. I couldn't move. My thumb hovered over the answer button, but I couldn't press it. What if it was a mistake? What if it was some sick prank? What if I answered and heard nothing? On the 6th ring, something inside me broke. I pressed the button. I lifted the phone to my ear. For 3 seconds I heard nothing, just silence. Dead air. Then I heard breathing. Slow breathing. In and out. Steady. Human. Someone was there. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. I tried to say hello, but no sound came out. Then a voice spoke. Dad? One word. Quiet. Confused. Scared. My son's voice. I know my son's voice. I heard it every day for 19 years. I heard it in my dreams for 20 years after. This was him. Not a recording. Not a memory. Him. Actually, him. Speaking to me through the phone. My vision blurred. Tears ran down my face. I still couldn't speak. My body wouldn't work. Dad, are you there? He said again. His voice cracked. He sounded desperate, lost. I forced air into my lungs. I forced words out of my throat. Michael? I whispered. My voice didn't sound like my own. Silence on the other end. Long silence. Then, yeah, it's me. Where am I? His question made no sense. Where was he? What kind of question was that? What do you mean? I asked. My voice was shaking. Where are you calling from? More silence. I heard him breathing faster now, panicked breathing. I don't know, he said. I don't know where I am. Nothing makes sense. Dad, something's wrong. Everything feels wrong. I stood up from my bed. I turned on the light. I needed to think clearly, but my brain wasn't working. My son was dead. I buried him. I watched them put him in the ground. This couldn't be happening. Michael, what's going on? I asked. Where have you been? I didn't know what else to say. What do you ask someone who's been dead for 20 years? He made a sound like a sob. I don't know, he said. I remember the accident. I remember the truck hitting me. I remember dying. I felt it, Dad. I died. But then I woke up and everything was different. I look different. I feel different. I'm in some place I don't recognize and people walk right past me like I'm not even here. I've been trying to figure out what happened, but nothing makes sense. I found a phone. Your number was the only one I remembered. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. My son remembered dying. He knew he died, but he was talking to me. How was he talking to me? Are you hurt? I asked. Stupid question. He's dead, but he's calling me. Nothing made sense. No, he said. I'm not hurt, but I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. Can you come get me? Please? His voice broke on the word, please. He sounded like a little boy again, lost and afraid and needing his father. Tell me where you are, I said. Give me an address. I'll come right now. I don't know the address, he said. I'm in a building. It's dark. There are apartments. I'll try to find something with an address on it. I heard movement through the phone, footsteps, a door opening. Then the line went dead. Just like that. Gone. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. The call timer showed 9 minutes and 43 seconds. I immediately called back. The recording played. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I tried again. Same message. I tried 15 more times. Same message every time. My dead son had just called me asking for help. And then he vanished. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat on my bed staring at my phone until the sun came up. I kept replaying the call in my head. His voice, the way he said Dad, the fear in his tone, the confusion. It wasn't a recording. Recordings don't hesitate. Recordings don't ask questions. Recordings don't sound lost. This was a real conversation with a real person who knew things only my son would know. He knew about the accident. He knew my number. He knew who I was. But my son was dead. I saw his body. I touched his cold hand at the hospital. I watched them close the coffin. I watched them bury him 6 feet under the ground. At 6:30 a.m., I drove to the cemetery. I needed to see the grave. I needed proof he was still there. The morning was cold and gray. Fog hung low over the headstones. I parked and walked to the oak tree. His grave looked exactly the same as it always did. Gray stone. Fresh flowers from my visit 3 days earlier. The ground was solid and undisturbed. No one had dug him up. No one had touched the earth. I knelt down and put my hand on the grass. It was cold and wet with dew. "Michael," I whispered. "Are you down there?" Stupid question. Of course he was down there. I buried him myself. But then who called me? I stayed at the grave for an hour. I didn't pray. I'm not religious. I just sat there trying to make sense of what happened. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe grief had finally broken my mind after 20 years. Maybe I was going crazy. But when I checked my phone, the call was there in my history. Michael's name. 2:47 a.m. 9 minutes and 43 seconds. Not a dream. Not a hallucination. Real. I took a screenshot of the call log. I needed evidence. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Then I drove home and waited. I didn't know what else to do. 3 days passed. Nothing. No calls. No messages. I barely ate. I barely slept. I kept my phone in my hand every second. I was afraid to shower because I might miss a call. I was afraid to leave the house. My neighbor knocked on my door asking if I was okay. I didn't answer. I just sat in my living room staring at my phone, willing it to ring. On the 4th day, at 3:15 a.m., it rang again. His name. His picture. I answered before the first ring finished. "Michael?" I said immediately. "Dad?" His voice came through. He sounded worse than before. Tired. Desperate. "I found something. I found an address." My heart jumped. "Where?" I grabbed a pen and paper off my coffee table. "What's the address?" He read it slowly. 4247 Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8, Moorfield, West Virginia. I wrote it down. My hand was shaking so hard I could barely read my own writing. "That's 2 states away," I said. "What are you doing there?" He made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "I don't know," he said. "I don't know how I got here. I don't know why I'm here. But Dad, something's really wrong. I went outside today and people looked right through me. A woman walked into me, actually into me. Like I wasn't solid. I think I'm dead. I think I'm a ghost or something." "You're not a ghost," I said. I didn't know if that was true, but I said it anyway. "You're talking to me. Ghosts can't use phones." He laughed, but it sounded broken. "Then what am I?" he asked. "I look in mirrors, and I see someone older. I see a face that's almost mine, but not quite. I'm so confused. I'm so tired. Can you please come get me? I don't want to be here anymore." My throat tightened. "I'm coming," I said. "Stay where you are. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there in 8 hours. Can you wait 8 hours?" Silence. Then, "I'll try." "Dad, I'm scared." Those 3 words destroyed me. "I know," I said. "I'm scared too. But I'm coming. I promise." The line went dead again. I didn't even try calling back. I knew it wouldn't work. Instead, I stood up and started packing. I threw clothes in a bag. I grabbed my wallet and keys. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't call work. I just got in my car and started driving toward West Virginia. My son was alive somewhere. Impossible. Insane. But he called me twice. He gave me an address. I had to find out what was happening. Even if it destroyed me. Even if I was chasing a ghost. I had to know. Before I left, I did something I knew would sound insane. I called the phone company. It was 4 a.m., but their customer service line was 24 hours. A woman answered with a tired voice. I gave her my account information. Then I asked her to pull records for my son's old number. She asked why. I told her I'd been receiving calls from it. She put me on hold. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. When she came back, her voice had changed. Confused. Sir, according to our system, that number has been inactive for 19 years. It was disconnected in March 2006. There's no activity on it at all. No calls in or out. No data usage. Nothing. That's impossible, I said. I received 2 calls from that number in the past 4 days. Check again. She put me on hold again. This time, 15 minutes passed. A different voice came on. A supervisor. Male. Professional. Mr. Porter, I've reviewed the account personally. The number you're asking about has been deactivated for nearly 2 decades. Our system shows no recent activity whatsoever. Is it possible you received calls from a different number that displayed incorrectly? I felt anger rising in my chest. I know my son's number, I said. I've had it saved for 20 years. I'm looking at my call log right now. 2 calls, both from his number, both lasting several minutes. The supervisor's tone became careful, gentle, the way people talk to someone they think is unstable. Sir, sometimes grief can cause us to see things that aren't there. Perhaps you should speak with someone, a counselor or therapist. We have resources we can recommend. I hung up on him. I didn't need a therapist. I needed answers. I took more screenshots of my call log. I recorded a video of my phone showing the calls with the date and timestamps. I needed evidence. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. Then I got in my car and started the 8-hour drive to West Virginia. I drove straight through, no stops except for gas. I bought coffee at a truck stop and kept driving. My mind raced the entire time. What would I find at that address? Would Michael be there? Would it be abandoned? Would there be nothing at all? Part of me expected to arrive and find an empty lot, but I had to go. I had to see. The address was burned into my brain. 4247 Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8, Moorfield, West Virginia. I punched it into my GPS, 8 hours and 12 minutes. I did it in 7.5. I arrived at 11:47 a.m. The address led me to an old apartment building on the east side of town. 4 stories, red brick, built maybe in the 1970s. But something was wrong immediately. The windows on the first floor were boarded up. The front door had a chain and padlock on it. A faded orange sign hung on the fence. Condemned. No trespassing. Scheduled for demolition. My stomach dropped. This building was abandoned. Empty. How could Michael be here? I parked across the street and stared at it for 10 minutes. This had to be wrong. Maybe I wrote down the address incorrectly. But when I checked my notes, it was right. 4247 Riverside Avenue. This was it. I got out of my car and walked closer. The fence around the property was chain link with holes cut in multiple places. Easy to get through. I looked around. The street was quiet. No one watching. I slipped through a hole in the fence and approached the building. The front door was locked with the chain, but around the side, I found a door with a broken lock. I pushed it open. It creaked loud enough to make me freeze. I waited. No sound from inside. I stepped through into darkness. The smell hit me immediately. Mold, rot, stale air. I turned on my phone's flashlight and looked around. I was in a hallway. Peeling wallpaper, stained carpet, graffiti on the walls. Apartment doors hung open on both sides. I walked slowly down the hall checking the numbers. Apartment 1, Apartment 2. All of them empty. Trash on the floors. Broken furniture. Evidence of squatters and drug users. This place had been abandoned for years. Maybe a decade. I reached the stairwell and climbed to the second floor. More of the same. Decay. Emptiness. Silence. I checked every apartment. Nothing. No sign anyone had been here recently. I climbed to the third floor. My hands were shaking. My heart pounded. And then I found apartment 8. Apartment 8 was at the end of the third floor hallway. Unlike every other door in the building, this one was closed. Fully closed. No damage. The number 8 hung straight on the door in brass metal that looked polished. Clean. I stood in front of it for a full minute. Every instinct told me to leave, to run. But I came here for answers. I reached out and turned the handle. It wasn't locked. The door opened smoothly, silently, no creaking. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Then I stopped breathing. The apartment was perfect, completely perfect. While every other unit in the building was destroyed and rotting, this one looked like someone lived here. The walls were painted soft blue, clean, no peeling, no water damage. The carpet was beige and spotless. I could see vacuum lines in it, fresh vacuum lines. The air didn't smell like mold, it smelled like soap and coffee. I walked further inside and my legs felt weak. The living room had furniture, a brown couch, a coffee table, a television on a stand, everything neat and arranged, like a normal apartment, like someone's home. On the walls were photographs. I walked closer and my vision blurred. They were photos of my family. Me and my wife and Michael, pictures from when he was a child, his first day of kindergarten, his 10th birthday party, Christmas morning when he was 12, a photo from his high school graduation. I had copies of these exact photos at my house. How were they here? Who put them here? I touched the frame with shaking fingers. The glass was clean. No dust. These had been hung recently. I moved to the next wall. More photos. But these were different. These showed Michael older, in his 20s, in his 30s. Photos that never existed. Photos that couldn't exist because he died at 19. In one photo, he stood in front of a college building wearing a graduation gown. In another, he sat at a restaurant with friends I didn't recognize. Another showed him standing in front of this exact apartment building, smiling, alive, looking maybe 35 years old. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. My hands shook so badly the photos came out blurry. I had to steady myself against the wall. This wasn't possible. None of this was possible. I walked into the kitchen. Clean dishes in the drying rack. A coffee mug on the counter with brown liquid still in the bottom. I touched it, still slightly warm. I opened the refrigerator. Food inside, milk, eggs, leftovers in containers. I checked the date on the milk. It expired in 5 days. Fresh, recent. Someone was living here. Someone was eating here. In a condemned building scheduled for demolition. I closed the refrigerator and saw a note held to the door by a magnet. My heart stopped. The note was handwritten on lined paper. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Michael's handwriting. The same messy scrawl he'd had since middle school. I pulled the note off the fridge and read it. Dad, if you're reading this, I don't know what's happening to me. I woke up here 3 weeks ago with no memory of how I got here. I have ID that says my name is Marcus Powell. I'm 38 years old. I work at a factory. I have an apartment and a life I don't remember living. But it's not my life. I remember being Michael. I remember you. I remember Mom. I remember dying in that accident. I felt the impact. I felt everything stop. Then I woke up here as someone else. 20 years passed, but I don't remember any of it. The people here know me as Marcus. They've known me for years. But I'm not Marcus. I'm Michael, your son. I think I'm supposed to be dead. I think something went wrong. I don't belong here. Please help me figure out what happened. I read the note 3 times. My vision kept blurring with tears. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. Then I walked to the bedroom. The door was half open. I pushed it all the way and looked inside. A bed neatly made. A dresser with more photos on top. A closet with clothes hanging. Men's clothes. Size large. Michael wore size large. On the nightstand sat a wallet and a set of keys. I picked up the wallet and opened it. Inside was a driver's license. The photo showed a man who looked like an older version of my son. Same eyes, same nose, Same slight scar on his chin from when he fell off his bike at age 7. But the name on the license said Marcus James Powell. Date of birth, April 12, 1986. The same birthday as Michael. Address 4247 Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8, Moorfield, West Virginia. I sat down on the bed because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. My son died 20 years ago. I buried him. But according to this license, he'd been living here under a different name, living a life he didn't remember. How was that possible? I pulled out my phone to call the police. Then I stopped. What would I tell them? My dead son is alive, but doesn't remember being alive? They'd think I was insane. I put the phone away. I needed more answers first. I needed to understand what happened before I involved anyone else. I stayed in that apartment for 2 hours, searching through everything. I found bills addressed to Marcus Powell going back 5 years. Electric bills, water bills, pay stubs from Moorfield Manufacturing, all showing regular payments, a normal life. In a drawer, I found a lease agreement signed 3 years ago, Marcus Powell's signature, but it looked almost identical to how Michael used to sign his name. In another drawer, I found medical records, hospital visits, prescriptions, a file from a neurologist. I sat on the couch and read through every page. The medical records told an impossible story. According to the documents, Marcus Powell had been admitted to County General Hospital on November 3, 2005. The same hospital where my son died. The same date, the same night. He'd been in a severe car accident, multiple injuries, head trauma. He was in a coma for 6 days. When he woke up, he had complete amnesia. No memory of his life before the accident. No memory of his identity. No ID was found at the scene. He became a John Doe. The hospital kept him for 3 weeks while they searched for family. No one ever came forward. No one claimed him. I read the words over and over. November 3, 2005. The night Michael died. The same hospital. The same type of accident. My hands started shaking. I kept reading. After he was released from the hospital, social services helped him. They gave him temporary housing. They helped him get ID under the name he chose for himself, Marcus Powell. He couldn't remember his real name, so he picked a new one. He got a job. He built a life from nothing. A life as a stranger to himself. The records showed years of therapy, depression, anxiety, trauma from not knowing who he was. But he survived. He kept going. I found a business card clipped to the medical file. Dr. Sarah Chen, neurologist, County General Hospital. I called the number immediately. A receptionist answered. I asked to speak with Dr. Chen. She asked what it was regarding. I didn't know what to say. I need to ask her about a patient named Marcus Powell, I said. It's urgent. It's about a case from 20 years ago. The receptionist put me on hold. 5 minutes later, a woman's voice came on the line. This is Dr. Chen. Who am I speaking with? My name is David Porter, I said. My son Michael died in a car accident on November 3, 2005 at County General Hospital. You treated a John Doe the same night. Same accident, same injuries. He woke up with amnesia and became Marcus Powell. I need to know what happened that night. Silence on the other end. Long silence. Mr. Porter, she finally said. Her voice was careful, uncertain. I remember that case. It was unusual. We had 2 young men brought in from the same intersection within an hour of each other. Both were in critical condition. Both had severe head trauma. One didn't make it. The other survived but lost all memory of his identity. Was there any chance they could have been confused? I asked. My voice was shaking. Could their charts have been mixed up? Could there have been a mistake about which one died? Another long silence. Mr. Porter, are you suggesting that we misidentified your son's body? Her tone had shifted. Defensive now. I'm suggesting something went wrong that night, I said. I'm suggesting the boy who survived might actually be my son. I heard papers rustling on her end. That would be impossible, she said. We use fingerprints. Dental records when available. We don't make those kinds of mistakes. But you didn't have fingerprints for the John Doe, did you? I said. He had no ID, no wallet, nothing. You never knew who he really was. More silence. Mr. Porter, I understand you're grieving, but what you're suggesting is simply not possible. Your son was identified by you personally at the hospital. You saw him. You confirmed his identity. She was right. I had identified Michael's body. I saw his face. But what if I'd been wrong? What if in my shock and grief I'd made a mistake? What if the boy in that bed wasn't Michael? Can you pull the records from that night? I asked. Please. I need to see everything. Admission times, treatment notes, everything about both patients. Dr. Chen sighed. Mr. Porter, those records are 20 years old. I'd need permission to release them. I'd need proper authorization. This isn't something I can just hand over. My frustration boiled over. My son called me, I said. Twice. From a disconnected phone number. He gave me an address. I'm sitting in his apartment right now looking at his medical files. Something happened that night. Something no one understood. Please help me figure out what it was. The line went quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she spoke again, her voice softer now. Give me until tomorrow, she said. I'll pull everything I can find. But Mr. Porter, I need you to prepare yourself for the possibility that you won't like what you find. Sometimes grief makes us see things that aren't there. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat in the silent apartment surrounded by evidence of an impossible life. My dead son had lived here, under a different name, with no memory of being my son. And somehow, 3 weeks ago, he started to remember. I spent the night in that apartment. I couldn't leave. I sat on the couch waiting for Michael to walk through the door, waiting for the phone to ring. Neither happened. At some point, I fell asleep. When I woke up, sunlight streamed through the windows. It was 9:23 a.m. My phone had 6 missed calls, all from Dr. Chen. I called her back immediately. She answered on the first ring. Mr. Porter, I found something, she said. Her voice sounded different, shaken. Can you come to the hospital? I need to show you in person. I drove to County General Hospital, the same place I'd gone 20 years ago when they told me Michael was dead. The same building, the same parking lot. Walking through those doors felt like stepping back in time. Dr. Chen met me in the lobby. She was in her 50s with gray hair pulled back tight. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. Follow me, she said. She didn't make small talk. She led me to a small office on the 3rd floor and closed the door behind us. On her desk were several thick folders and a laptop computer. I spent all night going through archives, she said. She sat down and gestured for me to sit across from her. What I found doesn't make sense, but you need to see it. She opened the first folder and spread papers across the desk. On November 3rd, 2005, 2 patients were admitted to this hospital from car accidents at the same intersection. Patient A arrived at 11:52 p.m. Critical condition, massive head trauma, multiple internal injuries. He was pronounced dead at 12:17 a.m. on November 4th. You identified this patient as your son, Michael Porter. She slid a document toward me. A death certificate. Michael James Porter. I'd seen this before. I had a copy at home in a box I couldn't bring myself to open. Patient B arrived at 11:58 p.m., Dr. Chen continued. 6 minutes after patient A. Also critical condition. Also severe head trauma. But he was stable enough for surgery. We operated for 7 hours. He survived but fell into a coma. When he woke up 6 days later, he had complete retrograde amnesia. No memory of anything before the accident. No ID was found. He became our John Doe. She opened another folder. Medical charts. Photos. This is Marcus Powell, the John Doe who survived. She turned her laptop toward me and opened a file. Side-by-side photos appeared on the screen. On the left was a hospital photo from November 2005. A young man in a hospital bed, bandaged, bruised, unconscious. On the right was a driver's license photo, Marcus Powell, taken years later. The same man, older. I stared at both images. My breath caught in my throat. That's my son, I whispered. The face on the left looked like Michael. The eyes, the shape of his jaw. Features I'd know anywhere. That's him. That's Michael. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Mr. Porter, here's what doesn't make sense. I pulled the original intake records from that night. Both patients came from the same accident scene. Both were driving vehicles involved in the same collision. But according to the police report, there was only one car accident that night at that intersection. A truck ran a red light and hit a sedan. One driver in the sedan. One driver in the truck. 2 people total. But we treated 2 patients with nearly identical injuries from the same location at almost the same time. I couldn't process what she was saying. How is that possible? I asked. She shook her head. It's not possible. Unless someone made an error in the reports. Unless there were actually 2 separate accidents minutes apart that got recorded as one. Or unless. She trailed off. Unless what? I demanded. She looked uncomfortable. Unless the patients were somehow confused during intake. It was a chaotic night. Multiple trauma cases. Overwhelmed staff. If 2 young men with similar injuries arrived minutes apart, if their charts weren't properly labeled immediately, if someone made assumptions about which patient was which. You're saying you might have declared the wrong person dead, I said flatly. The words felt like knives coming out of my mouth. Dr. Chen's face went pale. I'm saying there may have been confusion about patient identification during a critical moment. I'm saying mistakes, while rare, can happen. I'm saying the man who survived as John Doe has the same blood type as your son. The same approximate age, similar physical characteristics. And according to intake photos, similar facial features despite the trauma. She pulled out another document. This is the original police report from that night. It lists only one victim in the sedan, Michael James Porter, age 19, but it also notes that identification was found at the scene in the vehicle. I identified his body, I said. My voice sounded hollow. I saw him. I touched his hand. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. You identified a body that had severe facial trauma, in a moment of extreme emotional distress, in the middle of the night. After being told your son was dead, Mr. Porter, the human brain under that kind of stress doesn't always see clearly. And we don't always question what we're told when it confirms our worst fears. I stood up. The room felt too small, too hot. So you're telling me I buried the wrong person? That I've been visiting the wrong grave for 20 years? That my son has been alive this entire time and I didn't know? Dr. Chen stood too. I'm telling you there are irregularities in the records that warrant investigation. I'm telling you that Marcus Powell may need to be DNA tested. I'm telling you that what happened that night may not be as clear as everyone thought. She handed me a piece of paper with an address written on it. This is where Marcus Powell works. Moorfield Manufacturing, 3rd shift. He should be there tonight starting at 11 p.m. But Mr. Porter, you need to be prepared. If this man is your son, he doesn't remember being your son. He's lived an entire adult life as someone else. Approaching him could be traumatic for both of you. I took the paper. My hands were numb. If there's even a chance he's Michael, I have to see him, I said. I have to know. Dr. Chen nodded. I understand. I've arranged for a DNA test kit. If you can get a sample, a cheek swab, or even a hair with the root attached, we can run it against your DNA. We'll know for certain within 48 hours. She handed me a small plastic bag with a sterile swab inside. I put it in my pocket. One more thing, she said as I turned to leave. If this is your son, if Marcus Powell is actually Michael Porter, you need to understand that he's not the same person you lost. 20 years of living as someone else changes a person. Even if the DNA matches, the boy you knew is gone. I went to Moorfield Manufacturing that night at 10:45 p.m. The factory sat on the edge of town surrounded by empty fields. A large metal building with trucks parked outside. Bright lights illuminated the parking lot. I sat in my car watching workers arrive for the night shift. Men in jeans and work boots carrying lunchboxes. I didn't know what Marcus Powell looked like now. I only had the driver's license photo and the pictures from the apartment. Would I recognize him? Would I see my son in a stranger's face? At 10:52 p.m., a silver Honda pulled into the lot and parked 3 spaces from me. A man got out. Tall, maybe 6'1", wearing jeans and a brown jacket. He grabbed a backpack from the passenger seat and started walking toward the factory entrance. I couldn't see his face clearly in the dark, but something about the way he moved made my chest tighten. The walk, the slight slouch in his shoulders. Michael used to walk exactly like that. I got out of my car and followed him at a distance. He reached the entrance and stepped under the bright lights above the door. I stopped walking. My legs wouldn't move. I could see him clearly now. His face. It was older. Lines around the eyes. Heavier jaw. But it was Michael's face. 20 years older. Exactly how he would look if he'd lived. The same nose. The same shape of his mouth. Even the way he ran his hand through his hair before opening the door. Michael did that exact gesture 1,000 times. I watched him disappear inside the building. Then I stood in the parking lot crying. Not quiet tears. Loud sobbing that I couldn't control. My son was alive. He was 38 years old and alive and working the night shift at a factory. I waited in my car for 3 hours trying to decide what to do. I couldn't just walk up to him. What would I say? Hi, I'm your father. You died 20 years ago, but you're actually alive. You just don't remember. He'd think I was insane. He'd call security. I needed proof first. I needed the DNA test. At 2:15 a.m., workers started coming out for their break. Groups of men smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee from thermoses. Then I saw him. Marcus. Michael. He came out alone and walked to the far edge of the parking lot away from the others. He leaned against the fence and stared up at the sky. I got out of my car and walked toward him. My heart hammered so hard I thought I might pass out. Each step felt impossible. When I was 20 feet away, he noticed me. He turned and looked at me directly. Our eyes met. For 3 seconds, we just stared at each other. I saw confusion cross his face. Then something else. Recognition, maybe. Or familiarity he couldn't explain. "Can I help you?" he asked. His voice. Michael's voice, but deeper. Rougher from years of living. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. "Are you okay?" he asked. He took a step toward me, concern on his face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." The irony of those words nearly broke me. "I'm sorry," I managed to say. You look like someone I used to know." He studied my face more carefully now. His expression changed. Uncertain. Troubled. "That's weird," he said slowly. "You look familiar too. Have we met before?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. I'm not from around here." But I moved closer. Close enough to see the scar on his chin. The small scar from the bike accident when he was 7. It was there, faded but visible. "What's your name?" I asked. "Marcus," he said. Then he hesitated. "Marcus Powell. You?" I almost said David. Almost told him the truth. But I stopped myself. "John," I lied. "John Williams." He nodded but kept staring at me, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "This is going to sound crazy," he said. "But I feel like I know you. Like I've seen you before. Maybe in a dream or something." My throat closed up. "Maybe," I whispered. He laughed nervously. "Sorry. I know that sounds insane. I've had weird dreams lately. Really vivid ones. About a life I don't remember living." "What kind of dreams?" I asked. He looked uncomfortable. "It's stupid. Just stress, probably. My therapist says it's my brain trying to fill in the gaps from my amnesia. I was in an accident a long time ago. Lost all my memories from before. Sometimes my mind makes up stories to explain the missing pieces." He rubbed his face tiredly. "Lately, the dreams have been intense. I see people I don't recognize but feel like family. I see places I've never been but feel like home. And there's this one man who keeps appearing. Older guy. Always sad. Always watching me. I think it's supposed to be my father, but I don't remember having a father." I couldn't breathe. He was dreaming about me. "What does he look like?" I asked. In the dreams. The father. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. His eyes narrowed slightly. Like you, he said quietly. He looks exactly like you. The air between us felt electric, heavy. He took another step closer. Who are you really? He asked. Why do I feel like I know you? I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to grab him and never let go. But I forced myself to stay calm. I lost someone a long time ago, I said. Someone who looked like you. I thought I saw him in your face. I'm sorry for bothering you. I turned to walk away. I had to leave before I broke down completely. Wait, Marcus called out. I stopped. What was his name? The person you lost. I looked back at him, at his face, my son's face. Michael, I said. His name was Michael. Marcus went very still. His expression changed. Shock, fear, something else I couldn't identify. That's impossible, he whispered. How did you know that name? My heart stopped. What do you mean? I asked. He looked shaken now, pale. I've been having these dreams. In them, people call me Michael, not Marcus. Michael. I always wake up confused because that's not my name. But everyone in the dreams uses that name like it belongs to me. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands. 3 weeks ago, I woke up and found this in my notes app. I don't remember writing it, but it's my handwriting. He turned the phone toward me. On the screen were 3 words written over and over. I am Michael. I am Michael. I am Michael. Written dozens of times, filling the entire screen. I thought I was losing my mind, Marcus said. His voice cracked. I thought the amnesia was making me crazy, but you just said that name. A stranger just said the name from my dreams. How is that possible? I pulled the DNA test kit from my pocket. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. I need to ask you something, I said. And I need you to trust me, even though you don't know me. Will you let me take a DNA sample? Just a cheek swab. It won't hurt. It'll take 10 seconds. Marcus stared at the kit, then at me. Why? He asked. What's going on? I looked into his eyes, Michael's eyes. Because I think you're my son, I said. I think you're Michael. And I think you've been alive this whole time. Marcus didn't move for a long time. He just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Fear, confusion, something that looked almost like hope. Your son is dead, he finally said. His voice was flat, careful. You said you lost him. That means he's gone. I nodded. Tears ran down my face and I didn't wipe them away. I buried him 20 years ago, I said. I watched them put him in the ground. I visited his grave every week for 2 decades. But 3 weeks ago, he called me. Twice. From a phone number that's been disconnected for 19 years. He told me he didn't understand what was happening. He gave me an address. Your address. And when I got there, I found an apartment full of photos of my family, photos of you, and a note in my son's handwriting saying he didn't know who he was anymore. Marcus took a step backward. His face had gone white. That's not possible, he said, but his voice shook. That's insane. I held up the DNA kit. Then prove me wrong, I said. Take the test. If I'm crazy, it'll come back negative and you'll never see me again. But if I'm right, if you're Michael, don't you want to know? Don't you want to finally understand who you are? His hand went to his mouth. He pressed his knuckles against his lips like he was trying to hold back words. Or screams. I died, he whispered. In my dreams, I remember dying. I remember the accident, the impact, everything going dark. I remember feeling my life end. So do I said. I remember getting the call that you were dead. I remember identifying your body at the hospital. I remember every second of your funeral. But what if we were both wrong? What if something happened that night that no one understood? Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. If you're telling the truth, he said slowly. If I'm really your son, that means I lost 20 years. 20 years of life I should have had with you, with my real family. 20 years living as the wrong person. His voice broke. How do I come back from that? We figure it out together, I said. I stepped closer and held out the kit again. Please, let me take the sample. Let's find out the truth. He looked at the kit for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, he whispered. I opened the package with shaking hands. I pulled out the sterile swab. Open your mouth, I said. He did. I gently swabbed the inside of his cheek for 10 seconds like the instructions said. Then I sealed it in the plastic tube and put it in my pocket. How long until we know? He asked. 48 hours, I said. A doctor at County General Hospital is running the test. She'll compare your DNA to mine. Marcus wrapped his arms around himself. What do I do until then? He asked. How do I go to work and act normal when my entire reality might be a lie? I didn't have an answer. Can I call you? I asked. Can I give you my number so we can talk? He nodded and pulled out his phone. I gave him my number and he saved it. What do I call you? He asked. The question destroyed me. Whatever feels right, I said. John, or David, or nothing at all until we know for sure. He saved the contact as John. Then he looked at me with an expression of pure pain. I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to understand I'm not saying it to hurt you. What is it? I asked. He took a shaky breath. If the test comes back positive, if I really am your son, I don't remember being him. I don't remember you. I've lived as Marcus Powell for 20 years. That's the only life I know. Even if the DNA says I'm Michael Porter, I don't know if I can become him again. I don't know if that person even exists anymore. The words felt like a punch to the chest. But he was right. Even if he was Michael, he wasn't the Michael I lost. That 19-year-old boy was gone forever. I understand, I said. My voice barely worked. I just need to know the truth. Whatever happens after, we'll deal with it. He nodded. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached out and touched my shoulder. Just for a second. I'm sorry, he said. For what you've been through. For what you lost. Whether I'm him or not, I'm sorry. Then he turned and walked back toward the factory. I watched him go. I stood in that parking lot until the sun came up. 2 days later, Dr. Chen called me. I was back in that apartment. I'd been staying there waiting for the results. When my phone rang, I couldn't answer it for 3 rings. I was too terrified of what she might say. Mr. Porter, Dr. Chen said when I finally answered. Her voice was strange, tight. The results came back. I need you to sit down. I sat on the couch, the same couch where I'd found the note. Tell me, I said. She was quiet for a moment. It's a match, she said. Marcus Powell is your biological son. Michael is alive. I don't remember what I said to Dr. Chen after that. I think I thanked her. I think I asked her to send me the official results. Then I ended the call and sat in silence for an hour. My son was alive. The test proved it. Michael James Porter did not die on November 3, 2005. Someone else did. A stranger was buried in his grave. My son had been living 2 states away under a different name for 20 years. And I had missed everything. His 20s, his 30s. 2 decades of his life gone. I would never get them back. He would never get them back. I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. It's positive, I said. My voice was hollow, empty. The DNA test. You're Michael. You're my son. Silence on the other end. Long, terrible silence. Then I heard him crying. Not quiet tears, deep broken sobs. I don't know what to do, he said between breaths. I don't know how to be him. I don't remember him. I cried too. We stayed on the phone crying together for 10 minutes, neither of us speaking, just breathing and crying and trying to process something that couldn't be processed. Can I see you? I finally asked. Can we meet somewhere and talk? He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he said. Yeah. I need to see you. I need to try to understand this. We met at a diner 2 hours later. I got there first and sat in a booth by the window. When he walked in, I stood up without thinking. He saw me and stopped. We stared at each other across the restaurant. Then he walked over slowly and sat down across from me. Up close in the daylight, I could see Michael so clearly in his face. But I could also see the stranger he'd become. The lines, the weathering, the life lived without me. I don't know where to start, he said. His voice was raw from crying. I've spent my entire adult life not knowing who I was. And now I know. But it doesn't feel real. It feels like something that happened to someone else. I nodded. I buried you, I said. I mourned you. I visited your grave every week. I kept your room exactly how you left it, and you were alive the whole time. He put his face in his hands. I'm so sorry, he said. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know sorry doesn't fix 20 years. But I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's not your fault, I said. None of this is your fault. Something went wrong that night. The hospital mixed things up. You woke up not knowing who you were and they never figured it out. No one is to blame. But even as I said it, I felt anger. At the hospital, at the police, at whoever made the mistake that stole 20 years from both of us. What do we do now? Marcus asked. How do we move forward from this? I didn't have an answer. I don't know, I said honestly. You're my son. The DNA proves it, but you're also Marcus Powell. You have a life, a job, an identity. I can't ask you to give that up and become someone you don't remember being. He looked at me with wet eyes. But I want to try, he said. I want to know who I was. I want to know you. I want to understand the life I lost. Even if I can never fully remember it, I want to try. Those words gave me something I hadn't felt in 20 years. Hope. Then we take it slow, I said. We spend time together. We talk. I tell you stories about who you were. You tell me about who you've become. We figure this out one day at a time. He reached across the table. His hand shook. I took it. His hand was bigger than I remembered, rougher. But when I held it, I felt something I thought I'd never feel again. My son's hand in mine. We sat in that diner for 4 hours. I told him about his childhood, his first words, his favorite toys, the time he broke his arm falling out of a tree, his graduation, his dreams of going to college. He listened to every word like he was hearing a story about a stranger. Maybe he was, but sometimes recognition flickered in his eyes. Small moments where something I said touched a memory buried deep. We exchanged phone numbers properly this time, not as John Williams and Marcus Powell, as David Porter and Michael Porter, father and son. Over the next 3 months, we met every week, sometimes at the diner, sometimes at his apartment. Once, he came to my house and saw his old room. He stood in the doorway staring at posters on the walls and books on shelves. It feels like a museum, he said quietly, like I'm looking at artifacts from someone else's life. I told him about his mother, how she'd remarried, how she'd moved on. He said he wasn't ready to meet her yet, maybe never. Some wounds were too deep. I understood. I contacted the cemetery and had the grave examined. The body buried there was tested. It belonged to a 19-year-old named Christopher Hayes, a runaway with no family, no one looking for him. He'd died in my son's place and been buried under my son's name. I had his remains moved to a proper grave with his real name on the stone. The calls stopped after the DNA test came back. Michael's number never rang again. Whatever had caused it, whatever impossible thing had reached across 20 years to bring us together, was finished. I'd brought him home. Not the way I'd imagined, not as the boy I'd lost, but as the man he'd become. We would never get back the time we'd lost. We would never have those 20 years. But we had now. We had tomorrow. We had a second chance that shouldn't have existed. I buried my son 20 years ago. I mourned him. I visited his grave. I thought he was gone forever. Then he called me from beyond death and said he was just lost, and I brought him home.